Hello and a big welcome to everyone. So great to see all of you here. We have so many people, so many familiar faces. So, welcome to another Facts webinar. Happy Sunday, and thank you as always for joining us on a weekend. It's always a pleasure for us to be presenting to you as well. I think today, more than any of the other webinars, I am super duper excited because we have a very, very special topic. I think this is certainly one of the most awaited webinars from a very long time. We've had a lot of students requesting a webinar specifically on TOEFL prep, and I am so glad and so proud and so excited to have somebody who is from this industry, some of the best educators from the industry to present today. We have somebody who knows how it's done. We know somebody who has a very, very high success rate. And we have somebody who genuinely cares and who's passionate about students passing their TOEFL exam. And so let's get started. I'm extremely excited to introduce Dr. Adam Ray. Dr. Adam is an educator and an entrepreneur originally from Michigan. He holds a PhD in educational leadership and policy studies from the University of South Florida, as well as a bachelor's and a master's degree in American history from Florida Atlantic University. That, Dr. Ray, is very impressive. With over a decade of experience in education, he's taught students of all ages from elementary to university levels. His teaching portfolio covers a range of subjects, including history, geography, economics, leadership presentations, and English language learning. He's also published papers on education law and education policy implementation. In November of 2018, he founded Elite Specialty Learning with the aim of providing high quality English language learning courses at affordable prices. Over the past 5.5 years, they have had over 4,000 alumni from around the world benefit from their courses. His team and him pride in helping you achieve your professional goals. So, Dr. Ray, thank you so much for joining us here, and we are extremely excited to have you.
Well, thank you, Varunda, very much for that very kind introduction. You almost made me blush there. That was very sweet of you, all the kind words you said. And it's so nice to see such a large turnout. I guess I'd like to begin by thanking everybody for taking time out of your Sunday. Our weekends, of course, are very limited. They come and they go, and it's Monday morning before you know it. So just the fact that you've taken time out of your day to be here with us and with me is really an honor. If everybody could, when you have a chance, again, no pressure, I'd be interested in the chat, and I'll read it as we go along, in knowing where everyone is from, what country you're from, or perhaps what state you are living in, or if you're in a Canadian province or wherever you are. I'll read through that in the chat as we go along, because I'm interested in knowing where people are from. Such a big world we have, 8 billion people, and I'm very interested in history and geography and languages, and I find all of that very, very interesting to learn about. So the reason we are here today, my friends, is to learn about the TOEFL exam, TOEFL. I know that we are all working here as physical therapists. We're working as professionals, and as I'm assuming most of you are aware, part of the licensure process involves the TOEFL. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Give me just a moment so we can get this going. I guess I'd like to ask everybody after I do this, could you give me maybe a thumbs up in the chat that you are able to see my screen? I just want to make sure we are on the same page.
Yes, we can.
All set? All right, the TOEFL and you? All right, very good. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. So a little joke, for many years, I pronounced this acronym wrong. And, you all work as physical therapists, right? PTs. You guys never deal with acronyms, right? Never have acronyms to learn that are confusing? No? So in education, we love acronyms too. And there is another test that teachers take called the TEFL, T-E-F-L. And in my experience, American educators tend to just conflate the pronunciation. We say them both the same. We say, I'm taking the TEFL or I'm teaching the TEFL. but really we mean the TOEFL. So I want to give you a brief overview of the exam, just very quickly, talk about its importance. And then we want to spend most of the time we have today discussing some tips on how to do well on the exam. All right, everybody good so far? Again, I don't see anyone's faces, and that's totally fine. So if there are any questions or concerns, something you don't understand, go ahead and get it in the chat and we'll get to it at the end. All right, so the TOEFL, my friends, again, I put here the International Phonetic Alphabet Pronunciation, TOEFL with that long O, standardized English test that is designed more for universities than anything else, but it has applications all over the world and in many professional certifications. The TOEFL is a huge part of that. This comes from the TOEFL information online. More than 11,000 universities in 190 countries. TOEFL, along with the IELTS and the Cambridge exams, are your main English language tests that are used for university admission and professional certification. Just a little history. There are over 2 million people who take this exam every year. 2 million. So the people who designed the TOEFL are doing pretty good, right? The company is called Educational Testing Service, ETS, founded just after World War II. So they've been around a long time. They're an American-based company. And they also, interestingly, they do something called the Graduate Record Exam, the GRE, which is what I had to take going into the PhD program at the University of South Florida. They also, the same company, they do something called the College Level Examination Program, or the CLEP, C-L-E-P. So those 3 tests plus some others. So if you are planning on studying at university in college here in the United States, it's very probable that you will encounter an exam put together by ETS, right? Some very brief history. We won't go over all of this, but the TOEFL was first administered back in 1961. Fast forward in 2005, the TOEFL evolved into having an internet-based option. And then obviously in COVID, a lot changed. This is important. The ETS introduced a take-home edition, so you could take the exam from your home. So it's, again, relatively recent, only 4 years ago. And then in 2021, there's been an update to the test. So again, prior to 2020, there wasn't the option of doing the take it home version, but post-COVID, that became an acceptable way to take the test. Big change, all right? Now, I did some research and I found some very interesting information. For my geography buffs out there, here we have a map of the United States with Alaska, not to scale. Alaska a lot bigger than it looks there, right? But you have here your 50 states. Not included is Puerto Rico, which is technically part of the United States, even though it's not one of the 50 states. So the TOEFL is required for physical therapists in one form or another, either via direct examination or via endorsement, in all of the states you see in green. All of the states you see in green. Some of these states here allow only via examination. Some allow by both endorsement or examination. But I hope by taking a look at this map, you get the picture of your professional options as a physical therapist here in the United States. You know, you look at this, I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's, if you count Puerto Rico, it's 7 out of the 51, and actually Washington, D.C. is included, so 52 divisions, political subdivisions in the United States require the TOEFL. I hope very much that you kind of take this into account. So depending on where you want to work, you know, you want to work in Texas, California, obviously huge market, Illinois, which is here. Can you see Illinois, right? Where the big city of Chicago is. Your big states that don't require it, New York, Pennsylvania, and Florida. But as Varunda and I have talked about many times, the TOEFL is useful in a whole host of other aspects of your professional life. It depends on the situation, immigration services, university admissions, other careers. So passage of the TOEFL can be a very helpful thing in advancing you in your professional life. Okay, let's move forward then. So the TOEFL, so you are aware, my friends, and again, I'm trying to advance, we got it good, is divided into 4 fluencies, and this is common in English tests: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Reading, writing, speaking, and listening. A 30 is a perfect score in each of the sections. Okay, so again, did a little research for you guys. Based on physical therapists, these are the scores we are generally shooting for. Now, other careers, other professions will have different kind of base numbers. Let's take a look real quick at listening. Now, there are many states that require only an 18 out of 30 on the listening portion of the exam. But looking around, if you shoot for a 21, you basically are good for almost the entire country. And as we go up, I saw big outlier in Arizona. They want a 26 on the reading, but most states want a 22 or a 21. Don't know what happens in Arizona. A lot of reading going on there, not sure, but the other states generally 21 or 22. Speaking is the highest, right? Speaking, again, there's some logic there. You as physical therapists obviously have to be able to communicate verbally with your coworkers, with patients, etc. So 26 is the norm. There are a few that only require a 24. Again, while we're in the chat, I would be interested in knowing if it's doable, and I can read through this later, what states we are thinking about working in. Again, I know I haven't reviewed the chat and what you've typed so far, but if you're looking to work in California or Florida or Texas, that would be interesting to me. Writing, again, many states need only a 24, but there are a few that are higher. In writing, 25. And you can see speaking and writing are the two fluencies that involve you kind of sending information as opposed to reading and listening, which are you absorbing information. So this is typically what physical therapists need to have on the test. Okay, wonderful. All right, let's get into then some tips. I'm actually going to go out of the order that I showed you here. Let's start with reading. So reading, my friends, these seem to be some of the things that give students trouble on the exam. One of them is prefixes, but also suffixes, prefixes. Prefixes are little additions to words that add to or change the meaning. Now, you may or may not be aware, not sure how linguistic, studious we are, but English is a Germanic language with a heavy Latin / quasi-French Greek vocabulary base. So somewhere around 65–70% of English words come from Latin / French / sort of Greek. And a huge component of that is found in our prefixes. So for example, we take a word like active. Again, that's a Latin French word, but then we add in the prefix hyper, which means extra or too much or a lot of, something like that. And we add it together. We kind of, pegar is the word in Spanish. We glue it together and we get a new meaning, hyperactive. Hypertension, something you as physical therapists, I'm sure, are familiar with that term, etc. There are dozens of these prefixes and then suffixes, which goes at the end of the word, in the reading component of the TOEFL exam. So what we try to help you do, and we'll talk about this in our course a little more, is we try to help you make solid connections between the common prefixes and suffixes you will encounter on the test. So roughly 3,000 words encompasses 90% of the daily parlance of a native English speaker. About 3,000 words, okay? And I know that if we are here exploring the option of the TOEFL, most students have at least a B1 or a B2 level on the European Common Framework. However, English itself encompasses maybe 500,000 words, and a huge number of these are academic words that you almost never encounter unless you're talking about a specific academic situation. So we have to be able to use things like knowing prefixes, like knowing suffixes, to understand unfamiliar vocabulary. Okay, good. Let's move on. Modifiers. Modifiers, especially in the answer section of the reading exam, can really trip students up. We found that this is cause scores to go down. So I give two examples here. We have the words tremendous and infinitesimal. Tremendous and infinitesimal. To me, you have a word like infinite, which means forever, and maybe you know that, but infinitesimal actually means really, really small, really, really small. So when we're doing the reading component of our material, of our course, we really focus on this type of modifier vocabulary. So they'll give you a reading passage and they'll say, there were a tremendous amount of problems or something like that. That's option A. Option B, there were an infinitesimal amount of problems. If we're not really sure about our vocabulary base, those types of responses can be confused. Okay, that's tip 2. Tip 3 is time. Remember, these exams are timed. So reading, by its nature, we have found, is the most time-sensitive component of the exam, in that you have to read a lengthy passage and then answer questions. Whereas in the speaking portion, you are given a very small prompt and then you spend your time answering. So the input coming into you in the reading section is the most sort of time consuming we have found. So we teach students how to focus on keywords. We look for certain words that will help the student answer the questions. And luckily, as we'll see, the questions go in order on the reading component. As the paragraph moves along, the questions also move along. So we work on those strategies to help you get better. Okay, good. If you have any questions, we will get to them at the end. Go ahead and write them in the chat, and Varun and I will work together on getting them answered. Great. So let's go now into the writing component. English writing, English, this is a tough one. Now, I given the example of reduce versus decline. Reduce and decline. Words that in many contexts mean the same thing. The problem is English uses transitive and intransitive verbs, and often they change meaning. I won't bore you with a ton of grammar this very moment, but basically, when some English verbs take on an object, they change their meaning. So for example, if I say I reduced the offer or I declined the offer, it has a totally different meaning than the offer reduced or the offer declined. Now, this one here, the offer declined, a little clunky, but I understand it means the offer went down. But this first one actually means I reject, I said no to the offer, excuse me. I once tried to write a little mini seminar classifying English verbs, putting them into classes and categories. And I tried to find rules for English verbs that could not be broken, that worked every single time. And I came up with a list of 12 classes of verbs plus a 13th being modal verbs. But even in then, sometimes I would come up with exceptions. And it was very frustrating to not be able to do that, to come up with hard and fast rules for my students so they could learn when a verb was transitive or not, etc., where it took a gerund or not. All of these are things that when we're doing the writing portion, we will help you learn. So when it comes time to take the test, you are ready to express yourself in the way that the graders are looking for when they use their rubrics. Next one, commas and semicolons, a little pet peeve of mine. Let's take a look at this sentence here. I will go to the restaurant tomorrow, comma, and I plan on ordering a hamburger. I personally, as just an individual writer, I don't like this comma, but this is the type of thing that the test takers are looking for. You have two independent clauses. Again, sorry to bore you with the grammar, but this is what we need to know for the TOEFL. I will go to the restaurant tomorrow. I plan on ordering a hamburger. And then you have this word here, and, which is like a conjunction, if you will. These are sentences that work well on their own. So we want either a comma or we want a semicolon here. Semicolon is very difficult to navigate. I never use them in my personal writing, but they can be helpful on exams like the TOEFL. We will teach you how to do that. Last, less is more. This is a huge thing. When I've done leadership training on the leadership exam here in Florida, and here with the TOEFL, students often think that if I write more, if I express myself more, I will get a better score. And that's often not the case. In fact, the more you write, the more opportunities there are for you to make a mistake, for you to spell something wrong, for you to use a word incorrectly, and to lose points. We want to stay mindful of word guides. Excuse me, I put workout guides here, but I mean guidelines for word count. The more you write, the more possibility there is for a mistake. Okay, great. Again, any questions about the writing component, please feel free to let me know in chat. All right, good. Tips for listening. Now, when we are doing the listening component of the exam, everyone who works with TOEFL says it's a good idea to take notes. That's a big part of the training, and we will do that. But notes sometimes can become a detriment. So we try to teach strategies for how to take very targeted notes. So when you go back to refer to them, you aren't wasting your time thinking about what you wrote. Instead, you're using that information to develop a response. Okay, good. Now, when you're doing the listening component of the exam, when we're not using our native language, what often happens is we get stuck on a word. We're listening to a speaker and you're, oh, I understand that word, that word, that word, that. Oh, it said something I don't know. And the speaker goes on, and I'm sitting here on this word trying to translate that word. He said coniferous. What is coniferous? Coniferous? And now I'm lost. And because we don't get a chance to hear this again, you spending your time translating that word that you could probably have figured out in context will miss the rest of the message. This is a strategy we will work on when we do the listening component of the exam. Last, for listening, the main idea. All right, the main idea is typically the thing that the listening component calls for, but students often, we have found, spend their time really honing in on where's the main idea, where's the main idea, instead of allowing it to come to them. These are strategies that we will help you with, so when you take the listening portion of the exam, you will not be overwhelmed, you will be ready to go. Okay, good. Last, the thing that causes the most fears, this is why I put it last, the speaking portion. For some reason, many people who study English in school, they have it in their home countries, they do it in their daily life. When it comes to reading, they feel good. Even writing, you know, they're not so bad. When they listen to a native speaker talk, yeah, I got it, no problem. But when it comes time to speak, oof, that's when the fear sets in. So a couple examples. Bored versus boring. Now, this is a common problem, especially for my students who speak Spanish or Portuguese as their native language. English employs adjectives with similar roots, but have different meanings. Bored versus boring. So if you say I am bored versus I am boring, very different meanings. Now, I know here we speak English well, but this is actually a common error we find in the speaking component, messing up the ed versus the ing. And just so you know, in this context, ing implies permanence. I am boring means I'm a boring person. And I'm a lot of things. I'm bald, I'm 40 years old, but boring? No, not boring. I am bored. Well, I hope that doesn't apply to you in this moment. I'm sure none of you are boring, however, right? You might be bored, but you're not boring. Same thing with tired and tiring, right? Tired is right now. He is tiring. It's like, oh, this guy, he's just hard to deal with, right? Big difference there. We work on these types of endings to help improve your speaking. The rate, meaning the speed at which we speak. Most native speakers speak between 100 and 150 words a minute. Some books will say 175. If someone is speaking over 200 words a minute, they're going pretty fast. So what we do during our work together is we use a speaking practice, and we try to get your rate to the point where you're not having extra pauses, but you're not also going too fast as to be incoherent, right? So between 100 and 150 words a minute. Last, my friends, for the speaking portion of the exam, our efforts need to be targeted. This is actually very important also in the writing, but I want to mention it here. When the test takers create a question, we have found they want that question answered, and they want it answered directly. So here's an example of a prop. Describe the migratory patterns of birds using Canadian geese as an example. So in this situation, it's really not appropriate to talk about ducks or to talk about pigeons or any other bird. They want Canadian geese talked about. And it's kind of counterintuitive because Most human beings want to explain themselves. They want to be understood. They want to make sense. We like being right. So you want to say, well, here's why I know what I know, but you really have to just stick to what the prompt says. There's some other things we can talk about too. And I hope to see all of you in our class that begins next month, or June, excuse me. But when we answer these questions, especially speaking and writing, sticking right to the question itself and not adding any extra detail is important. Okay, Varunda, if you're all right, I'll go ahead and talk about our program now, unless you think it's appropriate to take questions at this time.
I think it's a good idea to talk about that because I feel like there are some questions in chat about what are some good resources for TOEFL prep. And I was just responding to a student that you actually have a course that is very specific for physical therapists, like TOEFL prep for physical therapists specifically, that can be highly beneficial. So I think the timing couldn't be better.
Wonderful. I'm happy to take those. I'm actually reading through the chat here now. This is wonderful, Varunda. We have people Costa Rica living in Brooklyn, Turkey living in Maryland. Sorry I couldn't address these things earlier. I was in the presentation, I couldn't go to the chat. From India, living in a lot of people from India. Wow, California, living in New Jersey. Okay, Colombia, living in Tennessee. Wonderful, excellent. So let's go ahead here. Niddy asked, does FCCT accept best TOEFL scores of speaking, or do I need the scores in one report for one licensure? And I see that Varunda answered it. That's a good question, though. In some states, they are actually looking for a composite score, typically in the 3 fluencies, reading, listening, and writing, and then in speaking, they want a different one. So in theory, you could do really well on 2 of them and not so well on the third and still pass, okay? Varunda, any other specific questions I should address at this time? I see there are several here.
Somebody asked about best resources for speaking and writing practice for PTs.
Okay, well, there are a lot of resources online that we could share. The TOEFL website themselves does, and then obviously our course and our material. Should I talk about our program now? You think it would be a good idea, Varunda?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Wonderful. All right. So I want to talk to you all then about our program, and thank you again for the questions. Please forgive me if I was speaking a little fast. I'm very excited to have this chance to talk to you all. We have a TOEFL course that will begin on June 3rd, I believe, the first Monday in June. Our course is a 12-week rotational course where we have 2 weeks of instruction and 1 week of practice and review for each of the four fluencies. We will begin with reading and then go on. We will offer live classes with teachers like me, and might be one a member of my team, or actually it'll probably be me, but my team will be there as well. The plan at this point is to offer Thursday evenings. Saturday mornings will be a 3-hour session, and also classes Monday through Thursday in the morning. That's Eastern time when I say morning. We also will offer access to the class recordings, to all practice materials for 1 full year. We offer real feedback. This is the real important part, especially for the speaking and the writing component. And you'll have a Telegram support group to directly connect with me. And we'll also give access to all of our practice tests that should give you glimpses into the nuances of the exam. Again, the course begins on June 3rd. And when I say 12-week rotational, that can be a little confusing. So let me explain that. We start with the first fluency and we do 3 weeks, and then we go to the next one for 3 weeks, etc. After 12, we come back. But you, as students, will have access to all of the material, including the live classes, for 1 calendar year. The reason we do this is, unfortunately, there are students who maybe, they think they just need 1 fluency or something. They take the test. After taking our classes for a few weeks, they don't pass, and they need to do so again. So we want to provide this opportunity for students to study for 1 full year with us. And again, we feel very confident about our material, given that it's this combination of live classes with expert TOEFL instructors and the feedback that we provide. A little bit about my team. You have me here, Adam Ray, my Professor Yolanda's from California. She's been with me for almost 4 years. Dave is from Canada, and Kari is from South Africa. All have experience with test preparation, and all are here to help you. The plan initially is for me to be, I will give the live classes, but they will help me provide feedback for your writing and for your speaking components. We feel very good about this material. We feel very good about your chances for success. And as we showed here, let me just scroll back here to this map very quickly. The TOEFL is a very important thing. I saw in the chat the stats that you're from: Illinois, New Jersey, California. These are states that require the TOEFL, and we know that you are working very hard to advance your careers as physical therapists. This is a key component of that, and for that reason, we are very honored and happy to have this opportunity. Varunda, I don't know, any specific questions that you think stood out that would be important for me to address at this time?
Yes. Somebody said that they're very weak at making notes. Can you explain what's the best way to go about with like the writing component?
Okay, could you repeat that question about notes? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
They mentioned they're weak at making notes, so they were curious to know how they could improve the writing.
They're weak. You said they're weak at making notes. They're not good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, there's several strategies. One example we employ is Cornell notes. And can I put this in the chat?
Yes.
Okay, this is one strategy that we employ, Cornell notes. Again, I don't want to take too much time explaining all the intricacies, but it involves focusing only on bullet pointed single words or slight phrases, and then writing a summary. Yes, during the listening portion, that's correct. So that's one of the strategies that we employ, but there are others. Every student is different. One of the problems we found is that students make their notes too long. So when they go back to read them, they're taking too much time and they don't give themselves enough time to answer the material. So we try to focus on tightening, focusing on keywords. And again, the Cornell approach is one that we use. Feel free to Google that. It's a style of doing something with a piece of paper, one example. I see someone here question, do you recommend to use templates? All right, I'm not sure. Templates in what context, Aris? Yeah, I'm not sure. Just go ahead and answer that. Varuna, while he's to answer questions, there are I think a better way to think about it is a formulaic response. And yes, there are kind of A, B, C, D ways in which you can respond in the writing and the speaking component. Yes, I understand the question. Thank you very much. Yes, we do go over that in that 3-week rotation. We show how the graders are looking for these types of formulaic answers. Again, the TOEFL is timed. So time is both your friend and your enemy. We teach you how to focus your thoughts inside the time limit, because as you're seeing I'm doing now, we can all kind of blather on if we want to. You have to know how to tighten and narrow your material. All right. Good question, though. Thank you about the templates.
I'm going to take.
Go ahead, Varun, please.
I was going to say, I'm going to take a couple of state-specific questions in chat. Somebody asked, I have a New York license and a Type 1 certificate. Do I need TOEFL for New Jersey license transfer? So if you got, ideally for your Type 1, you will have needed TOEFL. If you have taken TOEFL already, then you don't need to take it again, especially if it was in the last 2 years. But if you got your Type 1 certificate and your TOEFL was waived for it, in that case, yes, you will have to take TOEFL for New Jersey. They do not waive it. And there was the exact same question for Texas state as well. These states do not waive TOEFL. Even if you have a degree from the US, even if you have a Type 1 licensure, they will not waive TOEFL. So TOEFL is mandatory for that. Somebody mentioned, and Adam, this question is for you. They get anxiety with timing. Is there any advice that you would recommend? Before I pass it over to Adams, I am going to say that and again, I'm not trying to market for Adam. I don't need to do it. I know he has a fantastic course. So the course obviously speaks for itself. So I don't need to do that. But I think the one thing as a physio myself, the one thing, as a foreign trained physio myself, the one thing that resonated with me is that this is, as far as I know, the first course in the country that is a TOEFL prep course for physical therapists, right? It's a TOEFL prep course specifically for physiotherapists. So if you feel like you've taken multiple attempts and you may or may not have had coaching in the past, but if you feel like you are stuck and you're not able to take your license exam just because you're not able to pass your TOEFL, or you're not getting that type 1 certificate just because you're not, able to pass TOEFL, I would definitely encourage you to check it out, because you should not, you should not be able to work, or you should not be licensed just because you're not able to pass TOEFL. So this course is very specific for physios, so definitely check it out. Back over to you, Adam. It says, I got anxiety with timing. Do you have any advice? Have your other students had that, and how do you usually ask them? How do you usually, what advice do you usually give them?
Absolutely. Anxiety is a common thing with tests and any kind of hyper. I mean, I felt a little anxious before coming on and doing this presentation. So it's a very normal thing. I think understanding that it's normal is the first step. And there are a lot of test taking strategies that we can help you. I think that as you see yourself getting better, which will happen in our course, you will start to believe more in yourself. And it's a hard thing to overcome. But again, understand that it's normal, put in the time and effort, be prepared, and you will succeed. That's really the bottom line. It's not that you're going to come into this exam thinking, yeah, I got this, no problem. Almost nobody does. And even someone who seems very confident and sure of themselves, believe me, they had some butterflies in their stomach before they got started. So very normal feeling. One of the keys to success at anything that matters is preparation. And listen, the fact that you are here at this webinar implies that you want to do well, that you want to succeed. And just that desire alone is a huge portion of the battle. You want to do well, you are here, you are trying to advance your career, you're trying to make something of yourself, you will be okay. That would be my advice for the person on asking about anxiety. Any other questions there, Varuna, that you thought? I saw one here in the chat that I thought was interesting about IELTS. Should I address that? And about the at-home test as well, Varuna.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so someone asked about the at-home test. Do I recommend it? I wouldn't say I do or do not recommend it. That's really a personal preference. My problem with doing anything at home is the distractions. You got the kids running around, something went wrong. Remember, it's a timed exam. I have heard stories, I think it's better now, but I have heard stories where students are logged in, something goes wrong with the internet, and they're out of luck because it's a timed test, right? So if you lose your signal, then sorry, too bad. So I personally, if I were you, I would rather take it at a testing facility where I can be calm, I don't have distractions. I don't have anybody saying, mommy or daddy, I need this or that. I'm here, I'm working on my test. That's what I would do. But it's up to you, the individual. Obviously, you can be a little more comfortable in your house. You can wear clothes perhaps a little differently, put the air conditioning at the level that you want. But I would take it at a testing facility. That would be my preference. About the IELTS, that's a good question. This is a gross oversimplification, but if it helps you think. The IELTS is more like the British world and the TOEFL is more like the American world. Again, that's a major oversimplification because there are institutions here in the United States that accept the IELTS, but in general, the TOEFL is the way you want to go for here for working in the States, university admission, etc. Okay. Yeah, I see somebody here said never at home again. Yeah, I on multiple issues and get the yeah, exactly. I wouldn't, again, that's me. I don't want to tell anyone not to take it at home, but I would recommend, yeah, if I'm being honest, I would recommend taking it at a testing facility. Yes, good question though. Thank you.
Adam, there's
Go ahead, please, Verona, please go ahead.
I think there was a question in chat asking if somebody's, I know your course is starting in June, but somebody asked if they're taking the exam in June. Do you have any other resources that they can use at this point? Anything that is 4 weeks long so that way they can prepare quickly?
I really don't have a specific 4-week thing to give them at this time. Could I just say this, Varuna? This student should feel free to contact me directly. We'll give them in my website is my personal information, and I'll see what I can do to help them on a one-on-one basis. Would that be okay? And until they take the exam in a month, so obviously they can't sign up for the course in June. I'd be happy to help this student though. So please let me go ahead and put my information here.
Thank you, and that's very kind of you. We appreciate
Oh,
that.
that's what I'm here for. That's my wait. It's sorry. Hold on. Let me type my number correctly so it actually works. There we go. And again, we want you to pass, but for whatever reason, if it doesn't work out for you the first time, that's what we are here for. Varunda, I see just put in the chat my contact information, Facebook, Instagram, website, and our link tree. So yes. Any other pertinent questions, Varunda?
I think you were talking about IELTS.
Yes, and again, I made that comparison, the British world versus the American world. That's not really 100% accurate, but if it helps you think about it, and Varunda mentioned certain states, TOEFL is really the way you want to go. And unless you want to take a lot of tests, if you like taking tests, that'd be great. The IELTS is more helpful in the sort of British world, like if you're going to Australia, etc. But the good thing is the TOEFL is also accepted all over the world. So I would recommend, especially if you're planning on working in the United States, but also Canadian universities, etc., taking the TOEFL exam. Monica's asking a question about process, Varunda, that I'm not sure. I think this is more of a PT certification related question. Is it possible to start my process while I pass the TOEFL, or should I wait? I don't know how best to answer that.
That's a great question, and it depends on the state. There are certain states that for which we would not recommend it, but if you're applying for like Connecticut or Maryland or something, yes, you can start the evaluation and then do your TOEFL. Tennessee is very strict about TOEFL. They do not waive the TOEFL requirements, but you can check with FCCPT if they would be willing to start it, and then you can submit your TOEFL scores before you apply for a revaluation. And somebody asked in chat prior to that, I know it depends on personal evaluation, but by and large, how much time, Adam, I think this is for you, how much time in your experience does it take to achieve the required score on an average?
Yeah, that's a good question. The reason we designed our 12-week course is we think that someone starting from a B1 level can achieve those TOEFL minimums in the 12-week period. So if you take the exam after the 12 weeks, you should be in good shape. Now, again, as you said, every student is different. No one who's really honest in the educational world makes guaranteed promises. We can't 100% guarantee anything because students are different. But in general, if you're starting from the B1 level, about that much time to get those numbers. The speaking component, as we showed earlier, demands the highest score. We're looking for a 26. So, and again, 30 is the maximum. So we think about that time. Good question. That's again, 12 weeks seems quick, but we're talking about 3 months, like a college semester. And a good question about the book. Someone asked, do we need the book? We do assign the book as part of our syllabus. Luckily, it's not very expensive. It costs about $20. We recommend the book buying. It's not 100% mandatory, but our course follows along with the official guide. And it is our desire that the students who sign up with us for our course do purchase the official TOEFL guide. You can see here, the 7th edition just came out. So we had to make some adjustments. We were using the 6th edition before, but now we have the 7th edition. So we've adjusted the course accordingly. Okay, but great question. Should we talk about, I don't know, pricing plans? Is that appropriate at this time, Varunda, or should we save that for another time?
We can ask the crowd if they want to discuss that, or I feel like we've answered all the questions. So I don't see there are any other questions, but it looks like students are interested. So feel free to share it as you see fit. And also, we also have a surprise announcement at the end,
Yeah.
which Adam will make. So Adam, all yours.
Absolutely. So our course has a cost of $299 US. So that features all of what you can see here, and I hope we can still see my screen being shared. The 12-week rotational course 1 full year of access to all of the material you'll see here. That's $299 US. Starting on June 28th, I believe, we will offer access to the recorded version of the course. That has a cost of $159 US. Let me go ahead and just double check that I'm telling you the right prices. My company offers a variety of different things, and I don't want to give anybody incorrect information. So again, the live courses have a 1-year cost of $299. And the asynchronous learning, which is the recorded classes, have a cost of $159. Varunda, I'll go ahead and just tell them, but as a special bonus to everybody here who's watching the webinar, who's come to us, who's working with FACS, we're going to offer a discount code of 10% off. So when you go into checkout, you're going to put in the code. The code is going to be, I'll go ahead and tell you the code right now. The code is FACS, nothing in uppercase, FACTS, FACTS. So with that code, you get a 10% discount. So whatever that math works out to be, it's like you save a little under $30. Again, the asynchronous learning becomes available actually on June 24th. So live classes start on June 3rd. The video recordings, again, same access to all the recordings, the practice materials, the study guides, the practice tests, etc., for 1 full year has a cost of $159, and the same discount applies. So it's our honor. That's hard to say, to present this to you and to give you all this opportunity. We very much hope to have the chance to teach you and help you grow. For me, it's personal. My wife is actually a physical therapist going through the same process that you all are. So it's personal for me in that sense. And I see the good work that physical therapists do. My grandmother was a physical therapist. And interestingly, my grandmother was born in 1919. That was a very different world for women. Women in the United States, and she was a pioneer in some ways. My grandmother was in the Army in World War II. She was a frontline nurse, saw some very guys with their legs blown off, real tough stuff. And when she came back home to Michigan, she worked as a physical therapist part-time at a hospital in Battle Creek, Michigan. So she was somewhat of a pioneer for women in that field. So again, very happy to have this opportunity to work with you all, and look very much forward to having you all in class.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ray. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Loved the interaction, loved the question, and happy to be able to have another guest speaker with us present on such an important topic. I am going to wrap up and I'm going to stop the recording, and we will be posting this on our YouTube page. So if you feel like you need to watch the recording, feel free to check out our YouTube page. And thank you once again for joining us. We will keep you posted about our next webinar, and make sure you subscribe to our Instagram as well as our YouTube channel so that way you can get notification anytime there's a new webinar posted. And again, once again, a shout out to the whole FACS team for being here in chat. David, Derek, Ravneet, Amreen, Tanya, everybody for being here and helping answer the questions. Have a great rest of the day, and we will see you next time.